In a quiet corner of the city, tucked between busy streets and glowing neon signs, there stood a small but popular restaurant known as Harbor Grill. Every evening the place filled with customers laughing, clinking glasses, and enjoying warm meals. But behind the swinging kitchen doors, the atmosphere was very different. Steam rose from large sinks, dishes piled high like small towers, and workers rushed around trying to keep up with the never-ending orders. Among them was a young man named Daniel. Most people in the restaurant barely noticed him. He stood quietly at the back, sleeves rolled up, hands soaked in hot water as he washed plate after plate. Daniel worked harder than anyone else in that kitchen, often staying long after everyone had left. What no one seemed to question was why he was always there, even on days when he wasn't scheduled. The truth was heartbreaking. Daniel had been working double shifts for weeks, yet he hadn't received a single paycheck. One rainy evening, a new employee arrived at Harbor Grill. His name was Mr. Carter, a calm and observant man in his early 40s. He had been hired as a temporary kitchen assistant, or at least that's what everyone believed. Dressed in simple clothes and keeping a low profile, he quietly helped chop vegetables, wipe counters, and carry trays. But Mr. Carter wasn't just another worker looking for a paycheck. In reality, he was the billionaire owner of a large restaurant chain, secretly visiting different locations to understand how employees were treated. He believed that a company's true character could only be seen from the inside. And on his second night at Harbor Grill, something unusual caught his attention. As the kitchen slowed down near midnight, most of the staff clocked out and left. But Daniel stayed behind, still scrubbing dishes with the same tired determination. Mr. Carter noticed his hands were red from the hot water, and dark circles rested under his eyes. Curious, he walked closer and asked gently, "Long night?" Daniel forced a small smile and replied, "It's always a long night." Mr. Carter soon realized that Daniel had already worked a full shift earlier that day. Yet here he was again, cleaning mountains of dishes alone. Over the next few days, Mr. Carter watched carefully. Every night Daniel stayed late. Every night he worked harder than anyone else. But something didn't add up. One evening Mr. Carter casually asked another employee, "Does Daniel always work this much?" The worker shrugged and whispered, "Yeah, he does double shifts. But the strange thing is, he's not even on the payroll for those extra hours." Mr. Carter felt a chill run down his spine. Not on the payroll. That meant Daniel was working for free. Determined to find the truth, he approached Daniel again later that night. This time, Daniel looked exhausted. His hands trembled slightly as he rinsed another plate. Mr. Carter spoke kindly, "Daniel, why are you still working if you're not getting paid for these hours?" For a moment, Daniel stayed silent. Then he sighed and finally told the truth. Months earlier, Daniel's mother had fallen seriously ill. Medical bills quickly piled up, and he desperately needed money to help her. The restaurant manager had promised Daniel more shifts if he worked harder. But instead of officially scheduling him, the manager began asking Daniel to stay late temporarily, promising that payment would come later. Daniel trusted him. Week after week, he kept working, hoping the money would eventually appear. But it never did. The manager always had another excuse. Daniel knew something was wrong, but he was too afraid to lose his job completely. Hearing this, Mr. Carter felt both anger and sadness. No hard-working employee should ever be treated that way. But instead of revealing who he really was, he decided to investigate further. The next day he quietly reviewed records, watched the manager's behavior, and spoke with other staff members. What he uncovered was even worse than he expected. The manager had been exploiting several workers, manipulating schedules, and pocketing money meant for employee wages. Daniel wasn't the only victim, he was just the one who worked the hardest. 2 days later, something unusual happened at Harbor Grill. A group of well-dressed executives walked through the front door. Employees looked around in confusion as the restaurant suddenly grew quiet. Standing at the center of the group was Mr. Carter, no longer dressed as a kitchen helper, but in a sharp suit. The manager's face turned pale. Everyone watched in shock as Mr. Carter calmly addressed the staff. "My name is William Carter," he said firmly. "I am the CEO and owner of the Harbor Restaurant Group." The entire room fell silent. Workers exchanged stunned glances. Daniel stood frozen beside the dish sink, unsure what was happening. Mr. Carter continued, explaining that he had been working undercover for weeks to understand how employees were treated. He then revealed everything he had discovered, the unpaid shifts, the manipulated payroll, and the exploitation happening behind closed doors. The manager tried to interrupt with excuses, but it was too late. Evidence had already been gathered. Within minutes, the manager was dismissed and escorted out. But Mr. Carter wasn't finished. He turned toward Daniel and walked over to the sink where he had spent countless nights working. "Daniel," he said warmly, "hard work like yours should never be invisible." He handed Daniel an envelope. Inside was a check covering every unpaid hour he had worked, plus a generous bonus. But the surprise didn't stop there. Mr. Carter announced that Daniel would be promoted to kitchen supervisor and offered leadership training within the company. The restaurant staff burst into applause. Some employees even wiped away tears. Daniel, overwhelmed and speechless, struggled to believe what was happening. For the first time in months, hope replaced exhaustion on his face. Mr. Carter then addressed the entire team. "A business is only as strong as the people who work inside it," he said. "No success means anything if employees are treated unfairly." From that day forward, Harbor Grill changed completely. New management ensured fair schedules, proper pay, and respect for every worker. Daniel continued working there, but now with pride instead of fear. His mother's medical bills were finally paid, and he began building a better future. Sometimes he would still stand by the sink late at night, remembering how everything had changed because someone cared enough to notice. And if this story reminded you that kindness, honesty, and hard work still matter in this world, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join us for more powerful stories that inspire, motivate, and remind us that even the smallest acts of fairness can change someone's life forever.